All right, welcome back everyone to the Founder-Led Marketing Show. Today I have Melissa Kwan, who is a 3-time bootstrapper and currently the co-founder and CEO at eWebinar, which is an on-demand webinar platform that allows you to run hundreds of engaging webinars without having to be there. Melissa, thank you for joining.
Thanks so much for having me.
Is that a good kind of tagline for what you guys do, or do you want to expand a little bit on kind of the company that you run and what you guys do, what problem you guys solve?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. It's on the lander of our website. So I'm guessing that's where you got it. Yeah. So eWebinar turns videos into webinars, so you never have to do them live. So think of anything you're doing repetitively. So, sales demos, pitches, marketing lead gen, thought leadership webinars, onboarding, training, any one of those things that you are either doing repetitively or you want to do more of. We turn that video into a webinar that has interactive elements, live chat that you can hop into in real time or respond later through email.
Cool. And just without sharing an exact number, but so people have context, where are you right now on the growth revenue journey? 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10 million, just so people have some context?
Yeah, we're between 1 to 2.
1 to 2. Cool. Very awesome. And you're bootstrapping, which is also important to note here. All right, let's dive in. So I want to start a little bit with your journey because I read a post on LinkedIn where you are very active and crushing it on kind of, I think you were in New York, you ran out of money, you had to borrow a lot of money, you were in debt, you didn't know so can you give a little bit the backstory? You can start at whatever point for you makes the most sense on how you ended up running eWebinar today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big story. I had 2 startups before this, also bootstrapped for 10 years. My last company, I sold it in 2019, which gave me the freedom and confidence to start this one. But eWebinar was always a problem. Like basically doing repetitive webinars was a problem that I always had in my last 2 startups because we were bootstrapped. Our team was so small. I was always the one that was running the demos, onboarding trainings, live on GoToWebinar or Zoom, whatever I could find. But I was doing them kind of around the clock, right? Because I was the only person that was doing them. And I was also nomading at the time. I had left New York to travel full time. So I was not only doing them repetitively, I was doing them kind of on opposite time zones of my customers. So I always dreamt of this product that would kind of do my job for me while I could go and just live my life. So I was always thinking about this perfect product that would turn videos into webinars, but without sacrificing the attendee experience, right? I wanted something that would engage people so they could watch from beginning to end, because if people are not watching your webinar until the end, you're not delivering the CTA or they're not getting that value. So I always thought webinars were pretty boring, and I wanted something on the screen to like engage people. So with eWebinar, we built in things like polls, questions, hotspots, like, things that people can actually do aside from listening to the video. So we're not like losing them to Instagram or whatnot. So there is an interactive element. And I wanted a way to respond in real time from my phone, because I'm always moving around if I could, but also respond later by email if I wasn't there, kind of like an intercom, like a support chat.
Interesting.
So all of these elements kind of exist in many different products. We basically just took bits and pieces of what works and put them into our own product. But I was really conceptualizing this in my last startup because I didn't have something that could help me deliver those things that I didn't want to do. So after that company was acquired about 2 months later, I started this company to solve this particular problem because it was just something that I thought about for so long. And I asked myself, if this product were to exist tomorrow, but I didn't do it, like let's say someone else beat me to it, how would I feel about that? And it was only then that I incorporated the company and then started putting all my energy towards this.
So was that competitive regret possibly in the future? So when you sold in 2019, was it obvious that that's going to be the thing? Or were you at that point still playing with a bunch of other ideas or not even knowing whether you would start something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. At the time, I had a bunch of different ideas, like 1,000 of them. I mean, they were everywhere. It was like blockchain authentication of luxury goods. It was like a gifting platform that could serve as like an Amazon wish list, but public, so your friends could buy you stuff. Like there was just all this other stuff that I was thinking about. I don't know if you can call yourself a founder if you don't have at least 100 domains on GoDaddy, right? But it was really a number of things, right? Like I really thought about the things that would make me happy because I felt like I had a second chance to do something new. And I made a list of 10 non-negotiables that I must have in my life for me to be happy. So it was things like, it has to be sold 100% through the internet, so no in real life events. In my last company, I did a lot of conferences, and I hated all of them. It has to be, I have to be able to sell it without talking to someone because I did so many of those demos and onboarding and training, and I just didn't like how it tied me to my computer. I had to be able to have something that could scale across industries and also, lines of business, because my last company was so niche. It was like for real estate, but for a particular function and only in the US. So it really couldn't get smaller. And when I was not doing well, I didn't have ways of expanding the product. So I made a list of 10 things, and eWebinar was really the only thing that checked all the boxes. So it was really easy, I guess, once I had those non-negotiables to eliminate the other 95% of ideas and really focus on this one.
I'm curious, how do you think about having those non-negotiables? Obviously, they help with quality of life in a sense. Are they beneficial or detrimental to actually scaling a company?
I mean, it's not even related, right? Because if you have a business, you're going to make it work, period. Like that's what founders do. Your non-negotiables, I think, in my case, it was like the things that make me happy are really kind of lifestyle based, right? I'm kind of at a point in my life where I would choose happiness over revenue and, lifestyle over more profits. And that's how we run the company. And that's like our whole team knows that. So, as a result, we have a lifestyle company where we promote these things, right? We want people to take me time. We want people to take their holidays and time off and spend time with family. Like we want people to work less, not more. We pay people more, not less now that we have the ability to. So I think once you have those non-negotiables that are kind of rooted in your life, it becomes your company culture. And I do think that there's way more to a business than scaling and revenue. I think there is lifestyle and sanity and to be able to enjoy yourself, right? So maybe some of the things will stand in the way of revenue. So because I don't want to talk to anybody live, we don't offer enterprise plans, right? There is no way to, we're not creating something that costs more, that increases customer expectations so that I have to have a customer success team. I want as little people as not possible, not as many people as possible. Once you charge a lot more, customers are going to require live calls, conferences, customizations, right? I don't want to build that business. I want to build a MailChimp or a Calendly where everybody comes in on their own. They can leave if they want, but hopefully they stay, right? So I think there are definitely different ways that we could make more revenue if I were to compromise on those non-negotiables. But I do think that the cost of doing those things is more than the revenue that we're not gaining, if that makes sense. Because the things that I want are not quantifiable. There is no amount of money you can pay me for me to run a business that requires me to travel, meet clients, take calls one-on-one, have a big team, do customizations and things like that.
Do you wish you would have had that approach in your first two companies? Or is this an approach that's only really possible once you have an exit, you have some amount of money that you can say, okay, I can go a little slower. I can say no to some money. How do you think about that?
I definitely only knew how to come up with this because in the last two companies, I didn't know, right? I didn't know to put myself first. I always came up with businesses that made money, that made revenue, because I thought that's what business people do. I was so green, I guess, in my journey that I didn't think it would take such a big toll on my personal life and my mental health if I didn't do something that I loved every day. As a result, I had businesses that made money, but I hated my customers and I hated doing the job. And I woke up every day feeling a little bit frustrated, and I was never able to fully enjoy is to do a lot of things that you don't want first before you know before you know what you love. Like, how was I ever supposed to know that I didn't like doing conferences? There are people in this world that love doing them. Like, how was I supposed to know that I didn't like going out to networking events just for the sake of it, right? I have to have done those things. And I don't think it has anything to do with like my position, right? My position in having an exit in the past. Like for 10 years, I didn't have an exit in the past. But I think it has everything to do with how you craft your business, how you craft your culture. And ultimately, I do think that if you love what you're doing and if what you're doing doesn't stress you out, then as a byproduct, you are able to work harder and longer on it because it doesn't stress you out. Like, where does burnout come from, right? Burnout comes from doing things you don't want to do. And in the past, I did a lot of those things, which is why I was always a bit frustrated. So I do think that it's a luxurious position to be in, but I don't think it's because I have an exit and have some financial stability right now. I think it's important to figure out the things that bring you joy before you choose a product idea, because there are so many things in life that can make money. And as a founder, like, I really believe that every founder, if they stick with it long enough, that they're going to figure it out.
Is a lifestyle business then like advanced people only? In the sense that if you say, okay, I only want to work, a certain amount, or I don't want to use these certain things of going to conferences, that works once you understand what your levers are and you can be more focused. Well, when you start your first business, you have no idea about anything and you just need to throw a bunch of random shit against the wall and you don't even know what your levers are. Do you need to go through that experience to
have a lifestyle business, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the stats, right, only 1% of companies are venture-backed. So what does that mean? 99% are lifestyle businesses.
No, that's not true.
That is true. 1% of companies are venture-backed. Like, that is a stat.
No, but not
that
the
is
other 99 are lifestyle business. Like the mom and pop shop,
that is a lifestyle business.
Restaurant.
That's also a lifestyle business.
Where they work 12 hours a day.
I mean, how do you define a lifestyle business? Any lifestyle business, I mean, in our industry is defined by a non-venture backed business, a business that is not going for the $1 billion exit. That's really what it means. So majority of companies are not going for the unicorn exit. So I think that the media perpetuates the idea that, as a startup, you have to go raise money or else you're not a startup and you have to, hit the home run. But the reason why we believe those are the majority is because that's the only thing we read about. We don't read about the other 99%. And you make a good point, right? Lifestyle businesses were around for 1,000 years, right? People have been building businesses within venture capital for 1,000 years, right? Like for as long as we remember businesses to be. So, I think it's just a personal choice. Right. I think a lot of companies that start off venture backed end up being lifestyle businesses because maybe they can't hit the growth numbers and then they become profitable and they're not shutting down, but they're switching their business models. I have a couple of friends that have done that as well, right? They can't raise any money. The VC say it's okay. You can keep running. We just won't give you any more money. And they found a way to be profitable. Right. So, I think lifestyle businesses have been misrepresented as, something that's not as good, I guess, as a venture-backed business. But I think there are so many lifestyle businesses, like probably millions of them, that give people really great lives. And it doesn't mean you're not working 16 hours a day, right? For the first 2 years we were running this thing, we were working 16 hours a day. But, the goals that a lifestyle business have are very different, right? The goals that we have, for example, is to give everybody involved, including all of our team, a really good life, right? To be able to pay people higher than market rate, right, where they're from, right? To be able to give people the lifestyle that they want by working with our company, to aim towards a 3 or 4 day work week, right? So those are the things that we care about. But I do think that like every venture-backed business is like has a template, like has a playbook. It's like the same. But I think every lifestyle business is a snowflake where you kind of get to define your own rules.
How do you define a lifestyle business?
I mean, outside of some of the things that I just talked to you about, it's I think at the core, it's a lifestyle, or it's a business that gives me the lifestyle I want.
And I think that's why I kind of challenge your notion a little bit that any bootstrap company that's not venture backed is a lifestyle company. Because I know a lot of people who run an agency and they're working 12 hours a day and they're not making a lot of money and they're kind of hating the work and they need to do all kinds of things and they don't feel like it's a lifestyle business,
Yeah, but a lifestyle business doesn't mean it's good. Most businesses are hard. A lifestyle business just means that you're not gunning for a massive exit. I had an agency. That was my first business. Any VC that you talk to, anybody that you talk to would tell you that it's a lifestyle business.
I see. I just don't think most people in that sense put their lifestyle first, actually. They are trying to put their company first and they're trying to make it really grow. They're not succeeding at it. And they're, hustling their ass off, but they don't feel like they're moving towards something that's financially allowing them to be free, but also, it's just, I guess, to me,
I think
business.
I think you're taking the word lifestyle too literally. Like You're defining the word lifestyle and attaching it to business. Whereas a lifestyle business definition just means it's a company that's not going to generate massive venture scale returns. It doesn't mean that I have a good lifestyle by doing the business. I mean, I think that's the goal, right, for most people. But the reality is, like, businesses are super hard and you have to suffer through them for a long time before it becomes good, right? What you're trying to define is a good business, right? Not all businesses are good and profitable.
Okay, so going back to your journey, you had the idea of eWebinar. You built this list of 10 criteria that you wanted your next business to have. You had this big problem in your previous companies of having to do webinars over and over. So that's how you started eWebinar. What were a couple other things that maybe you put in place? First things, lessons from your first companies where you said, I'm not going to hire people or I'm not going to do this. Any things, how you set up the company from the very foundation that were different?
Yeah, I definitely came into this company saying I'm not going to have any more employees. I've always been bad at managing people, always been bad at like hiring, firing, confrontations, hard conversations. And I've always been kind of a lone wolf. I'm traveling full time. I like to work on my own. And so I came into this company saying it was only like we were only going to hire contractors. But because we only hire contractors, it opens up the whole world, right? We can actually afford people in certain countries where we just can't afford them in the West. So having that model actually allows for our company to exist. So I think that's really important. But I did come into this company thinking I don't want to directly manage anybody else. The other thing is I came into this company. So my first two companies were blue ocean opportunities, right? We came up with a product that didn't exist in our market. Both were super hard. Like both were uphill battles because we constantly had to convince people to buy this new product that just wasn't in their budget. So coming to this company, I learned from a friend he's like the best second mover I've ever seen. And he taught me that it's better to be second mover so you can learn from the first mover. And it changed my idea of business forever. And so coming into eWebinar, I wanted a business that already existed in some form. So this one was more purple ocean, where we took a business model that exists somewhere and we apply it to a different vertical. So we were able to start off with people, paying for the product from day one because there was like the need was already there, versus in the past, we were constantly trying to pivot the product to find customers to pay for this product that didn't exist before them. So that was a huge one. And I guess another one was I came into this company thinking I didn't need a technical co-founder because I was so sick of not knowing how to communicate and manage engineers. My ex co-founder was my CTO, but we never really saw eye to eye on how to operate a business. So I spent a lot of time trying to manage expectations, and him falling short on, deadlines and things like that. Like, I didn't really know what he was doing. There was not a lot of transparency because before us, he didn't work with any other big company. So he didn't have a process. And because there wasn't a process, there was no transparency. So everything was like in his head and everything was up in the air. And I had 10 years of that. So I wanted to get away from managing CTOs and engineers. So I came into this company thinking I could be a solo founder. I was going to hire a dev shop and everything was going to be fine. It wasn't. Most dev shops don't know how to build products from 0 to 1. So a year after trying to work with a third party, I brought in my life partner, who is now my co-founder CTO, to join me on this venture. So that was a decision that didn't work out.
So it's your life partner too.
Yeah, that's correct.
Wow. Any lessons on how to manage that dual relationship?
Yeah, I think revenue solves everything in any relationship, right? Like, especially in business, like if you have revenue, if you have profit, you solve co-founder conflicts, right? You solve hiring, you solve marketing. So number one is make sure it's a good business. Like, why do people fight, right? Because the business is not working and you're trying to pivot and people have different values, different ideas, different product directions. So that's number one. Number two is document everything. Like, it just like pains me when I hear people working with their partners and they don't document things as if it's any other founder. It's not a handshake deal, right? Like, if you want your company to succeed, you have to make sure that the other half you're building it with doesn't just run away with something, right? And so the only way to do that is to document everything as if you're a venture-backed company. We're not venture-backed, but all of our documents are as if we are, right? So shareholders agreement, vesting schedule, all that stuff, right? And then once you have that, then you can focus on your business. Like, the terms of your exit. It's basically a prenup, right, for your business. And the third is definitely communication, like open, honest, quick communication. I would say the biggest transition from, David coming into the company was communicating as partners to communicating as coworkers. Like, the way you talk to your mom is not the way you talk to your co-founder or like your boss. So I think when you communicate in a personal context, you just blurt things out. You don't think. But when you're communicating in an office, you really think about, like, how is the other person going to receive what I'm going to say? So the hardest transition was going from like blurting things out and then, each like taking things personally, like on both sides, to thinking methodically before, communicating this thing. Right. So it's a process, but even for us, it took probably a year to figure out, like, how do you effectively communicate in a work environment? And then also switching off when you're having fun. But open communication and knowing that, like, it's never too obvious. I mean, it's like any friendship, any relationship, right? Over communicate, I think, solves a lot of things.
I know this is a very personal question, so feel free to not answer. Do you feel like your relationship got better or worse or different from now being also coworkers?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it got better, because if that relationship works and if your company's doing well, right, you're building a future together with your partner, right? So we have the same goals now, not only personal goals, but now also financial goals and professional goals. We're constantly thinking about this thing. And as a startup, you need to constantly be thinking about this thing. And other people might think, well, then you have no time off. Well, I don't want any time off. Like, my work life is so integrated that my work is my life and my life is my work. So we do have balance in that way, right? Balance is not taking 2 vacations off a year. Balance is something you create in your life every single day. So we do have, boundaries where, right now we're having fun, we're at a party, so we're not going to talk about work or whatnot. But 95% of our waking hours we're thinking about eWebinar. But that's not a bad thing, right? I actually think that because we are in this relationship, the company, everything about the company moves twice as fast because we're working on it so much. And now that things are going well, and because we had 4 years of trying to make this go, and now we're on our 5th year, like we're sharing the successes together. We own most of the company together. And if we sell the company, all of the proceeds go to us and not 50%, to someone else. Right. But all of this is because a company is doing well. It's not doing poorly. So I think it could go the other way. But if you can make it work, now you're with someone that has exactly the same schedule as you. So not only do we have the same like work schedule, now we can also do all the fun things together, which I think is awesome.
So you travel a lot while building eWebinar. Can you paint a little picture of what that looks like? How long are you in certain places? Do you get an Airbnb? Do you have, what does that look like, that kind of life?
Yeah, so we have a home base in Amsterdam. Previous to Amsterdam, we traveled for 3 years, just like on a luggage and just Airbnb'd in hotels. We kind of got sick of that because, after a while, you kind of want your own space, just like space to store stuff. You don't always want to be like buying things or whatnot. But it was fun. Like that like allowed us to see the world, make new friends, and just see different cultures. But we have a home base in Amsterdam. We spend summers there. But we're like big festival people, so we actually just use Amsterdam kind of as a bounce off point to go to different festivals. And then during winter, we usually spend winters in Asia where it's warm. This is the first year that we have a home base in Bangkok, and then we kind of use Bangkok as the kind of jump off point. But
are those permanent apartments that you sublease while you're gone, or how does that work?
No, we just keep it empty. Like our place in Amsterdam, like it's not worth it for me to have other people like in our space. It's very precious. Like we haven't even messed up our own apartment because we're barely there. So it doesn't make that much difference to me. Sometimes our friends stay there, but it's not a thing. And, our place in Bangkok is like, we lease it, but it's the first time we have like a permanent lease. I would have just gotten an Airbnb for a few months. But this opportunity came up, and the way we choose our locations, it's just like, if our friends are there, if there's an event, or if there's something fun we want to go to, then we'll pick a destination that way. But we don't really stay in a single place for that long unless it's Thailand or Amsterdam.
So what's the sweet spot that you found for being in one location?
Oh, I don't know. It's not really a sweet spot. I think it's just whatever you feel like. Like for us, like traveling is not a big deal for me. So we're happy bouncing around. We're happy staying in one place. I would say like if we stay in the same place for more than a month, we probably get pretty bored.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but we're always like coming and going, right? Even if we're in Bangkok, we might do a weekend in Hong Kong, or we might travel within Thailand. Yeah, we're never really in a place for more than 4 weeks at a time.
Right. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Pricing. I think that's a big challenge for a lot of founders. How did you guys arrive at determine pricing for your product?
Yeah, in the beginning, when we from day one, we had to pick a price, right? So we just looked at what else was out there. And we picked a price in the middle, not too cheap, not too expensive, because we can't justify something that, we can back up, right? So if somebody says you're too expensive, we can say why, right? So it's more qualitative, not quantitative. And then we didn't want to be a cost leader, because the less you charge, the higher the churn, the more handholding people need. And we don't want to be seen as the cheapest thing on the market. We want to be a premium product. But even a premium product can't demand the highest price from day one. So we always knew that we were going to adjust the pricing when we built more features, more integrations. So I think about 2 years after the product was live, we started hearing a lot of people signing up because it was the cheapest. Because now, at that point, our features were better than other solutions. We were a premium product. So we got a lot of people signing up because we were cheap. And those people were the highest likeliness to churn, and they needed the most support because they didn't have a business of their own. So we were seeing this pattern of people signing up because we were cheap and then not converting or leaving because they didn't have a business of their own. And so that was actually sucking up a lot of support away from companies that were paying more and did have a business and did want to expand their accounts. So 2 years after we launched, we doubled our prices. And then a lot of that kind of dumb support went away. And then, the conversion went down, like from free to paid, but the retention went up. Right. So, and then the average price per user also went up.
Okay. Interesting. And I think you recently talked about it on LinkedIn that you guys increased price again. I don't know if that's the price increase you're talking about, but you left legacy users on the old pricing, and now recently you brought them up to speed to the actual pricing. What are the lessons there?
Yeah. So in the second year, we doubled pricing, but we increased the prices, or we kept the prices of legacy customers the same, kind of as a thank you. Before I did that, a lot of my founder friends were like, "You're Bootstrap, you want to get to profitability, just raise the price. Like, raise the price for everyone if you believe that you are delivering more value for them." So the advice they gave me was the people that will churn, because we're not talking big money. We're talking 50 to 100, 100 to 200, right? So we're not talking 10,000 to 20,000, right? So they were like, any company who's generating revenue, who sees value in your product, can pay another $50 or $100, right? But for you as a bootstrap company, if 500 people pay you, that's a significant amount. And that's how you're going to get to profitability the fastest. I didn't believe them because one part of me wanted to do the right thing. I was like, because we weren't profitable back then, I didn't want to lose the customers that we had. And sure enough, they were right. So we probably would have went up 30K in MRR if we raised everybody at that point. And then that money would have gone into paying myself. I wasn't paying myself at the time. We could have hired another engineer. We could have upped the salaries of my COO and my CTO. Like, there were so many things we could have done with that. And what we didn't know at the time was when more people came in, like as we were growing, all of our platform costs were going to go up. And so I didn't really accommodate for that at the time. Right. And so that was something I should have done. But a year after we raised the price for everybody else, we announced to legacy customers that we were going to raise the price. Some people churned, most people stayed. And so we have 3 plans, right? The level 1, 2, 3. Most people that churn are actually on level 1. So the people that maybe never figured it out, or maybe maybe we weren't a good solution for them, or they couldn't figure out their own business, so they weren't using webinars anymore. So we thought we were going to see significant churn, but we didn't. And by increasing the legacy customer price to the latest price, we increased our MRR by 30% just in January. So that was a learning there. And now that's the thing I tell people is like, if you believe you're creating value, just increase the price of your legacy customers as well. And there's only so many times you can do that, right? Like, I think our first price was too cheap. So our legacy customers are really on like day 0 price. And with the value that we're delivering right now, they should not be paying that.
Are you thinking about like making it a yearly thing to increase prices now or something like that?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty ballsy to do. Like, I think bigger companies do that, like Monday or whatnot. Like, there's like a 5% increase or whatnot. Like, it's not, maybe, I don't know. Like, we're not there yet. Because along with our pricing changes, we also introduced add-ons. So now we realize after a few years, the features that power customers want to use, like power users use, right? Like custom domains or, additional registrants, things like that. We didn't know that before. So now we are more motivated to create features that make people want to upgrade to those features rather than raising the base price. Because we still want people to come in and be able to try it easily. I think $99 entry point is pretty high for a self-serve like SaaS. So I'm happy with that price point, but I do over time want to think about, what are the added benefits that we can put on that get our highest paying or highest usage customers to pay more, to upsell.
Right. When you think about the difference between a bootstrapped and a VC-funded startup, a VC-funded startup cares about growing top-line revenue. Well, for Bootstrap, there's a lot more paying attention to the bottom line and profit. What do you think are the different levers that you look at that maybe for a Bootstrap company, when it's more about profit than just let's grow revenue as much as possible, that you look at that are maybe different to a VC-backed startup?
Yeah, I mean, that's a super good point, right? I think VC-backed companies are revenue driven, revenue focused, whereas bootstrap companies are profit led, right? And so, I mean, that's why I named my own podcast for my company Profit Led as well, because that's how we make decisions. When you make decisions to drive profit, not only are you thinking about how do I increase and retain revenue, right? VC-backed companies are looking at how do I grow revenue, not necessarily retain the revenue. We need to retain revenue because that's the sustainable revenue that keeps us going. But VC-backed companies can dump money into ads to show a growth rate so they can raise the next round, right? We don't do that. When we think about driving revenue, we think about how do we grow revenue slowly in a way that is sustainable, right? In a way that makes people stay, not to show on a balance sheet that we have more revenue. But more importantly, we are constantly thinking about how to optimize cost. It's not enough to increase revenue. You also have to lower cost. That's what creates profit, right? If you have a lot of revenue, but your cost is double, you're going nowhere. So the way that we make decisions is, how do we hire most effectively from countries where we can afford? How do we hire contractors and optimize to pay the least for a certain expertise, but not having to bring that expertise on full time, right? So I think there's a misconception that bootstrap companies are cheap, but I think bootstrap companies are just better at optimizing for return on investment. We pay a lot for experts. Our designer is $1,000 a day, but we don't need that person full time. So on, a good month, we might use him for 4 days, but because he's so senior, he's able to do things at twice the speed and deliver twice the value as someone who I'm going to pay very cheap for. So I don't want to do that, right? So these are kind of the decisions that we make that are special to us. We only hire seniors so we don't have to experiment with juniors. And why don't we want to do that, right? Because we've tried that, but they leave, right? Because maybe they're not engaged because there's no office environment, and because they're junior, they need to learn from a person next to them, or they're more motivated by in real life interactions. Whereas a senior person, not only have they, do they have more experience, they can hit the ground running, they're usually a bit older. So they maybe have partners, they have young kids, they want to stay at home. They don't want to be in an office. So being remote actually is a value and benefit, and it drives them. And because we have that benefit, they value their position more, and then they're more productive. So, by spending more money on less people, we're actually able to run a more efficient company and therefore lower our burn. Whereas I think a lot of venture-backed companies are looking at buying revenue through ads, increasing revenue through increasing number of salespeople, like bodies, because they don't care about profit right now. They care about showing a growth rate so they can go and raise the next fund. So I think that's the biggest difference.
How do you operate with contractors efficiently? Because the benefit of having an employee, at least, there's a contract, you pay them month over month, they're always available whenever you need them. They have an allocated amount of hours that you can always use. They don't send you invoices for this and for that. It's just once a month they get their payroll paid. How do you operate in, let's say, a network of contractors efficiently?
I mean, I think the biggest misconception with contractors is they're working on multiple things at the same time. A contractor, for me, is a financial agreement. We don't have anybody in Canada where we're incorporated. And we hire from anywhere in the world. There is no other way for me to pay them outside of them being a contractor. Some of our contractors are not full-time, but you can actually dictate the method on how you work with them. We have 10 full-time contractors. Some are in Ukraine, some are in Vietnam, Some of our non-full-time contractors have other clients and they're in US, Canada, Netherlands, for example. Maybe they run a little shop on their own. But those are contractors that are designers, that are SEO writers, that are case study writers, So I love this model because not only are we getting an expert for a fraction of the price, the expert on the other side is also working with multiple clients only on their expertise. So it's a win-win situation where they're charging the highest per hour for what they're delivering. So that's how I kind of see that industry. But for our developers, everybody is full-time. We work through an agency that is local, right? So the agency is our contractor and they are the employee of that agency, if that makes sense. And that's a special relationship that we only do through developers, because a lot of developers prefer to at least have an option to be in an office environment where they can kind of banter and learn from each other. But I think that you get to determine the terms of your working relationship. And being a contractor doesn't mean that you're not dedicated. In fact, in my experience, I find that employees, because they have job security in theory, are less dedicated than people who actually value having 100% freedom. And as a result, because of this working culture and this working relationship, people are there because they want to. Anybody can leave anytime, and they're here because they want to. And I think that kind of relationship is the one that creates trust and accountability, and I guess lifestyle and happiness. Nobody's forced to be here.
All right, founder-led marketing. This is the founder-led marketing show. I feel like you are a great example of that. I'm curious if you would agree with that term, that's what you do.
I never thought I would fall into this position, but I think that is what I'm doing. So my last two companies were both sales-led because they were high ticket items. They were like 10,000 to 100,000 a year. So that's why I said I had to go to in real life events. I had to do booths. I had to meet people. I had to do conferences, because that's how software is sold in that category. But because we are a self-serve product, we're a product-led product, customer-led product, and marketing-led product, and we don't have any money to spend on marketing, I had to fall into my own kind of marketing. So a lot of things I do originally I thought was sales is really marketing.
Right. And what would you say are the things that you do? I mean, there's the LinkedIn. What other ways would you say you're leveraging yourself for the marketing?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is most obvious, right? I write on there 1 to 3 times a week about my journey bootstrapping. I actively market. I don't really do that anymore because there's a lot of inbound. I was actively marketing myself to be on other people's podcasts, just to create evergreen content. Every podcast has show notes. Show notes get linked back to our site. So it's multi-prong. So last year, 2023, I was on over 100 podcasts. And I also run my own podcasts for eWebinar. So it's called Profit Led. And, in this season, we talk about our journey to $1 million, right? So every episode is one thing we did or didn't do, didn't work or worked that contributed to us getting $1 million ARR. But I also do co-marketing with other companies. If we have an integration with another company, maybe we'll exchange each other newsletters. I build relationships with a lot of founders, a lot of also executives of startups. Anytime we can mention each other, anytime we can, it's kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing. So I have a community of founders like that. I'm, creating a new podcast that has nothing to do with eWebinar, but just kind of self-branding as well. A lot of, other kind of either video related or webinar related shows that I might be on, that also get cut up into YouTube. So I write content, not just for LinkedIn. I also write newsletters, try to do guest posts. There's just so many other things. And then we have an SEO strategy that drives the most leads. I don't run that. My COO does, but he's kind of the third co-founder to this company. But SEO drives over 50% of our demo traffic. So there's at any given time, there's 10 things that we're trying to do. A lot of those things doesn't have great attribution, but we do them anyway, because I don't believe, especially marketing, there's like wasted effort. I think everybody thinks about marketing as like a goal, right? Like an end goal. There's this thing that I have to do. And when I hit that thing, there's going to be this hockey stick growth. First of all, hockey stick growth is a myth, right? It doesn't happen to 99% of people. It only happens to like superhuman, for example. A lot of marketing is just doing a lot of things that move the needle a little bit, but collectively, it still contributes towards the greater goal of growing your business and personal brand.
I'm curious, in your own words, how do you justify you posting on LinkedIn and being active there, and how that fits into eWebinar?
I mean, I'm questioning this because every few months, LinkedIn changes the algorithm and then takes away all of your engagement. So I don't like that because I don't know what their strategy is. Like, and I know a lot of creators and a lot of founders on LinkedIn that say the same thing. It's just like, well, I've just built out this thing and now you're changing the algorithm, right? I used to get like 6,000 views or reactions and now I'm getting 100. So as a creator, it's not encouraging for me. I am increasingly questioning the time that I spend on there because I don't have anyone else writing my stuff. Like I spend 5 to 10 hours a week purely writing on LinkedIn. Those long posts that you see, sometimes I spend 10 hours on them. So back then it's getting me a lot of eyeballs, but right now it's not. So I'm increasingly questioning the time that I'm spending, but is it still important? Yes. Because nowadays it's not just your product that's important. People care about who's behind it. Why do people like my brand and like my product? Because they feel there's familiarity, right? People buy from people, right? I think we've made that shift in consumer products where like people used to buy their LVs and Chanels and all that stuff, right? Like people want the brand. But now, even when I go to a restaurant, the name of the farm is printed on the menu. So there is more of a personal connection to what you purchase than the brand and the product. If you're a huge brand like Salesforce, like you're beyond that. Most companies are not that. So for the first time, I think in software, people are caring about, well, who's behind the company? Let me look up the reviews. Let me look on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Let me see if they have a profile. Right? If I go to a piece of software and I go to a LinkedIn profile and there's like 10 connections and the profile's not built out, either you're already famous like Mark Zuckerberg or you're not a real business. That's how I'm thinking about it. So I think it's still important to have a public brand, especially if you're a growing company, to build credibility and trust. But that's why you can't just do one channel, right? You can't just be on LinkedIn. You have to also have some existence on YouTube. You also have to have a Twitter account. You also have to have Instagram. But they don't all have to be built out at the same time. Like that, you just have to have a profile. And that's why podcasting is so good, because people hear you speak and there's credibility there, right? Even if they're not speaking to you, it feels like you're a real person. So I do think that people should build a brand publicly, whether it's on LinkedIn or not, doesn't matter, right? It just depends on where your audience is. How do I justify? I mean, for me, it's just personal brand and credibility. But I am increasingly thinking about where else I need to diversify my time, because I don't feel like I'm getting enough return on it based on how often they change the algorithm and how much time I spent on it.
Right. I'm curious how you think about your content strategy, because one, if people don't follow you on LinkedIn, they should. But I think the reason why people like following you, because you actually share quite transparently more like the journey of bootstrapping a company. So you talk about mistakes that you're making, and you talk about your journey and burnout and all kinds of topics. And I'm curious, I feel like the standard content strategy that people in your position would probably go for is I should talk about webinars and I should talk about marketing. And I talk, because that's the audience I'm trying to attract and that's the product category that we're in. But you talk way broader. So I'm curious why that is and how you think about that.
Yeah. So I never talk about eWebinar. I never talk about webinars at all. First of all, I have a software that does webinars. Doesn't mean I'm a webinar expert. I'm a self-proclaimed not webinar expert. And that's actually why, like, sometimes when I get into a podcast or an interview and people ask me how to do webinars, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I just have the software. Like, they should go to a webinar expert or somebody in their industry to ask about that. So I took Justin Welsh's course on how to create a LinkedIn kind of system. That was how I started. And one of those exercises was like, what is your expertise? What is your expertise that attracts the audience you want to attract? My expertise is building startups with very little resources. This is my third bootstrap startup. I'm very scrappy. And our product is most loved by small teams because it helps automate something that needs a person. So any small team or any team, like small, medium-sized companies that are strapped for resources love us because we're like 2 people, 3 people that are doing like onboarding webinars or demos for them, right? So while I don't talk about webinars like specifically, I'm attracting small, medium-sized companies or other founders who are where I am. And they're just trying to do things more efficiently. So I write my profile. So while I don't talk about eWebinar, my profile is like, this is what I do, this eWebinar. Like it's written very strategically so people know exactly what I do right away. Also, there is more to business than just business, right? Like I said, so many people have told me, you need to do a podcast on webinars to attract people to do webinars. You need to do more content on webinars. ROI, right? I'm still putting content out there to attract an audience that I think could be good customers for us. But even if we don't, like I get a lot of messages that are like, oh, I really resonate with this, or I'm on this path and this post really helped me. Like for me, that's cool, right? Like I'm also doing something that's like an artistic side project, which is not software. And sometimes software could be very draining. And so getting these like kind of little compliments here and there about things that I write are also very encouraging.
And I'm sure it's more than just customers. I mean, there's maybe partners, there's team members, contractors, talent that this might be attracting, and future opportunities, with your 4th bootstrap startup.
Yeah. I mean, I think the byproduct of just being visible is I've now created a community of founders that I feel like are my friends that I may never meet in real life. That's very special to the time that we live in. Like I run a founders like a WhatsApp group that has like 40, 50 people that are kind of like me. Some are, earlier in their journey. A lot of them are like way ahead of me. And, it's kind of a safe space where you can riff about things that you would never post publicly. But now I have that because of LinkedIn. So that part is pretty cool too.
Yeah. All right, we ended here. Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time. I kind of just followed my curiosity, so I hope there's useful nuggets for people in here. I will link your LinkedIn and eWebinar down below, so if people are interested in either one of those, they can check that out. And yeah, thank you for joining.
Cool. Thank you so much.